What if I told you that there's a European country that feels like America 20 years ago? I've narrowed it down to 9 reasons to why Poland feels like America. So let's talk about social dynamics. Poland is really interesting because it feels like a mix of Eastern and Western culture. Yes, the women here are strong, independent, have their own jobs, but there are still blue jobs and there are still pink jobs. It's easy to have a strong social fabric when everybody comes from the same culture, everybody's born in the same country, and everybody looks the same. When everybody agrees on a social norm, society enforces it. Here in Poland, I like that there's still a healthy dynamic between the men and the women. Even though a lot of people will say that's changing, I don't think it's as extreme as it is in America. And I like how a lot of Polish people have a good idea of civic sense. People will fall in line and not try to cut. When you're on public transportation, a lot of the youth and men will give up their seats for older people, for pregnant women. Chivalry is also expected here from the men. And I like being in a society where chivalry is appreciated. You know, feminism has gone so far when I will open the door for somebody because it's a polite thing to do, and then the women will have a problem with it. A lot of guys have experienced this where we'll open a door for a woman and then when she's going through, she'll be like, I could have opened it myself. And I'm just like, shut up! But you'll be surprised how many times I've heard that in America. I've also had that experience in the UK. The problem with America is that we have so many different people from different countries and we're very multicultural. And this is a good and a bad thing. But one of the bad things is an erosion of social cohesion. My society norms as an Asian person are very different than an Arab, than a Mexican, than a black person. But we're all supposed to live together in harmony in America. But it's very confusing because societies need a balance of freedom and order. You need to have a rule of law that everybody agrees upon in order to be able to be creative and be free on top of it. But if you just have full freedom where everything's accepted, then there's no rule of law or order, right? And I don't want to really live in a society like that either. When you're walking in the street, people still say dzień dobry, which is like good day. There seems to be a societal expectation for manners and how you behave in public. When the rules are clear, it's easy to follow them. Number 8, living in a Christian society. Even though a lot of the younger people here are not religious by any means, the country is still a Christian country, very similar to America. You can say what you want about America, you can say freedom of religion, whatever. America is a Christian country. So I think it's important to separate the actual religion and the values of a society. For example, you could say Turkey is a Muslim country, but a lot of the youth don't really practice it, even though that they are a Muslim values-based society. And I think the same in America, right? Even though a lot of people now maybe don't believe in Christianity, that is still our predominant religion, and how our society is made up is based on Christian values, how we approach family, how we approach relationship, right? This idea of monogamy is a Christian value. In a lot of places in the East, for example, like Arab countries, in Asia or in Russia, a lot of people have multiple women, multiple wives. It's a lot more accepted. But here in Poland, people still prioritize long-term pair bonds, and people will usually be in relationships for years, get together while they're young and stay together for their whole entire life. And that's why a lot of people from other Catholic countries or Christian countries integrate pretty well here. Filipinos, a lot of Latinos, Italians, Spanish, and Americans that come here as well. Poland is one of the countries that refuses to take Muslim refugees and Muslim illegal immigration because they don't want to change their Christian culture. It doesn't feel like it's coming from a place of religion and faith as much as it is from trying to protect societal values. Also, on Sundays, a lot of the grocery stores and the malls are closed here. I think it's a little bit annoying because I like to be able to do things on Sunday, but it's also kind of nice because it encourages rest and family time on Sundays. If you guys are interested in moving back to Poland, I highly recommend setting up a strategy call here where we can talk about if it realistically works for your given situation. Number 7, respect for elders. This is something that is a very common value in the East, and I feel like it's definitely going away in the West. I remember in America growing up, we were taught to respect authority, respect our elders. Now, maybe it's because of the parenting style in the US where the parents want to be friends of their children instead of being parents. We have young people that don't respect any form of authority whatsoever. They don't respect the police, they don't respect elders. They talk back and curse to elders as if like that's appropriate behavior. I don't know where this behavior came from in America. And here in Poland, people still do respect their elders. And I think it's because a lot of the elders that are alive today were alive during the communist times and fought for the freedom of their country. So I think there's still an overall respect of the youth that like, okay, our grandparents were the one that allowed us to live in a safe and prosperous Poland today, so they deserve that respect. And you can feel it in general. It's very rare where you'll find young people on the street talking back to elders, talking back to police. And I think it just goes back to the overall strong family values and respect for family, right? Like, especially around the holidays, you'll see nuclear families hanging out together, and there's a tremendous respect for grandparents. There's this weird culture in the US where it's almost expected to put your parents in a retirement home. I don't know how big that culture is here. The nuclear families are a lot more connected. People live close to their parents, people live close to their grandparents, and I actually think that's a beautiful thing. When you're raising kids, you need the help of the immediate family. Raising kids by yourself, just two parents, while trying to work and provide for the kids is extremely difficult. It's on a whole entire family system. And I think in a lot of ways, Polish people still kind of have that village mentality when it comes to raising kids and family values. And number 6, shared values of freedom and independence. Poland specifically has these strong values of independence and freedom because of their tumultuous history. They've been invaded so many times by their neighbors. The mentality of the Polish people is just leave us alone, let us be free, let us do what we want, and we won't bother anybody else. And the current president, Karol Nawrocki, has even said the same.
United States of America are very important ally. And those relations are also based on our history. This is the relation of values. We have common independence heroes in Poland and in the United States.
And unlike a lot of Western European countries who take their freedom and privilege for granted, Poland understands that in order to have freedom like this, you have to properly fight for it. And that's why Poland is one of the countries that has actually paid almost 5% of their GDP into investing in their military, because they understand the importance of having a strong military. Number 5, let's talk about patriotism. I admire when people are very patriotic. I think it can get to an extreme sometimes where people use patriotism as an excuse to just be outwardly rude or racist. It's really sad to me that in America, if you say, I love America, I think we should put America first, that all of a sudden becomes partisan. Shouldn't that be an expectation of every American or any person that belongs to a country? Because I grew up in Los Angeles, which is one of the most liberal places in the world, saying that you were proud to be an American and you wanted to put American citizens first made you a racist. How does that make any sense? When you have people that love your country, those are the people that are going to defend their country. And if you allow a lot of people who do not like their country to start running things and to constantly talk bad about their country, it erodes the overall morale of the country, and people don't want to defend their country anymore. Number 4, real talk and thick skin. America has this PC culture where we want to dance around the topic and we have to ask things in a nice way rather than just getting straight to the point. It's funny because I wonder if America was always like that, because stand-up comedy started in America. If you watch the movies and the TV shows from like the early 1990s, some of the jokes and the boundaries were pushed so far to what humor could be. For example, I remember Tropic Thunder. Robert Downey Jr. did blackface and played a black guy, and everybody loved it. But you can't do that anymore because of this whole entire woke thing, and people just don't have thick skins anymore. Freedom of speech comes with the freedom to push the limits to what is offensive and what is not. Here in Poland, people have thick skin and people are very direct, and their sense of humor is fantastic. So I love being able to joke about whatever I want here. You can joke about race, you can joke about gender, you can joke about 9/11, literally anything. I think in America, the pendulum is finally swinging back. People are getting so fatigued with this whole woke, PC, social justice warrior behavior. I like living in a society where the people are a lot more direct, because at least you know where you stand with people. If people don't like you here, you know that they don't like you and you can move on with your life. Whereas in America, everybody's nice and friendly, but you're not entirely sure who your true friends are. I prefer to have deeper relationships over superficial ones. And I think that's a lot more valued here in Poland. Number 3, Poland is a high trust society. Poland in a lot of ways is still a honor-based society. They have a saying here, which is "Ruszyć słowa na wiatr," which is like throwing words into the wind. And the context around it is like, don't use your words lightly. If you say you're gonna do something, then do it. And this idea of like justice and doing the right thing is an important part of Polish society. And I believe that that was an important part of American society as well. Yes, we have this very strong military complex, but we also have the moral, I guess you can say, like superiority, that we have all this power, but we should wield it for the good of other people. But here in Poland, people are true to their word and they take their commitments seriously. And America is like this, especially when it comes to our business culture. Yes, you can have snakes everywhere, but I think America is one of the most business-friendly places in the world. And we have this very collaborative mindset. But high trust doesn't just apply to everyday interactions, it also applies to relationships. Let me give you a thought experiment. If you lived in a society where you knew most of the people there valued relationships and got into relationships in good faith and committing a lot of their heart and their energy into this relationship, versus a society that is low trust. You can't trust the intentions of the people that you interact with, whether it's in business or in relationships. So you're going into a relationship with your heart guarded a little bit. This is why living in a high trust society is very important, and it's very difficult to build it, and it's very easy to tear down. Number 2, work ethic. Polish people work very hard, especially in European standards. Poland has grown substantially over the last 20 years in terms of their economy, their overall GDP, and there is a general vibe in the air of optimism, of opportunity, and growth. Also, Polish seems to be really liked by AI. It's actually the best language to use AI in. So I believe that we're going to see a lot more tech talent coming out and a lot of Polish people getting involved in the AI space. And I think that's already happening. Poland is a pretty good balance because they have a lot of capitalistic tendencies, and the overall mindset of the people here is to work hard, and working hard is valued as opposed to some Western European countries. But they also have a lot of societal benefits that leads to an overall good quality of life. So it's nice that work ethic is still balanced. They also still value family time and hanging out with your friends. And number 1 reason is safety and rule of law. In America, safety and rule of law used to be a non-partisan issue. But something that's important to think about is, how does the general public feel about the role of law enforcement in their country? I remember when I was growing up, Americans heavily respected the military because we understood that they are an important part of society. But now it seems like there are 2 factions growing in America. The conservatives really value rule of law to the point where maybe it can be seen as a little bit authoritarian, which I think is a fair argument. But you have the complete other side that completely disregards rule of law. It doesn't matter if you're an illegal or legal immigrant, you get the same rights, which is absolutely ridiculous. We need to abolish the police. ICE are the enemies and we need to protest them no matter what. This to me is so crazy because I'm like, you're essentially supporting people breaking the laws in our country. I like how here in Poland, safety and their stance against illegal immigration is not a partisan issue. Everybody from the right and the left agree that safety is important, that we need to follow the rules, and if people want to immigrate into the country, they have to do it the legal routes. This is like a fundamental idea of any society. If you can't enforce your borders, do you really have a country? I thought that that was common sense. One of the reasons for that is because I'm Asian. Asians have a very similar idea of what rule of law should be, similar to Polish people, similar to Americans. That's why we usually don't cause trouble when we immigrate into other countries. But I like living in a country where people can bike on the street, kids can take public transportation any time of day, and you know nothing bad will happen to them. Poland is not a perfect country. They still have a lot of negatives here for sure. When it comes to the important things to how to live, these values are still respected here and remind me of what America truly used to stand for. If you are Polish living in America, Canada, or Western Europe, I highly recommend you consider moving back to Poland. It's very easy for you to come live here and assimilate back to the culture because you have roots in this country. And I can think of no better way of honoring your family and your bloodline by coming back to the country, contributing, having kids, and raising a family here. If you guys are thinking about moving to Poland, I highly recommend setting up a strategy call here where we can see if it realistically makes sense for you to do so.